I did that early on in my career, my first business, because I was constantly being distracted, giving my partner a hard time all the time. And then I had this kind of awakening and saw, oh my gosh, the amount of time I spend trying to argue with him. If I shift that to like putting it into my business and putting it into things I want to do, what a shift. And I did it, in my life completely changed.
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm McKenna Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome back.
Welcome to another episode. We have a really fun topic today that comes up a lot in our work with people, and I feel like it's really this aha moment for people. Wouldn't you say, Gigi? It's like the lights turn on and they go, oh my gosh, I never looked at it that way.
Right, yeah.
So we want to talk about it, and we have this line, or you have this line that you've said for a long time, which is don't solve your problem, take on a new challenge. And that new challenge is going for what you want.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, first of all, how did you come up with this? Before we really describe what it means, like, how did you start to see that people were just fixating on problems instead of going for what they want?
Well, I mean, early on when I started coaching people and I was leading trainings, and I would do an interview process. And in that process, what I would notice is there was basically a pattern with people, right? Is they, of course, when we have challenges or problems, and that's where all of our attention goes, right? That when we have that pain, we're like, we're trying to solve the problem all the time. And so through the interview process, what I started to do is see that if I tried to get in there and help people solve the problem, then we just went deeper and deeper into the problem. There was no way of solving it because their thinking was fixated on the problem. And so, I mean, just out of the way I started seeing how to work with people and bring them out, it was a natural thing for me to go, okay, shifting their attention to something else, which is what do they want? And then when we would shift to that, all of a sudden, like you said, they would be out of their heads, right? And then they'd be into, oh, yeah, what do I want? And so taking them in that direction, what happened is then when they would look at the problem again, it was from a completely different perspective, and it was from a bigger view, right? And then the problem didn't seem so big, and they actually started to focus on what they wanted. And that's what I would say. Let's get a bigger problem or a new problem. And really that is, what do you want? Because there's inspiration there and there's energy. Remember, the problem has energy, right? And so that brings us to it. Or we can say, what do I want? And out of doing that, it's also energy, but it's energy of inspiration. And it's tapping into our desire and what we want. That's how
Yeah, this was hugely my experience when we had that turning point moment when you supported me in Costa Rica, and we've told that story in previous episodes. I was so fixated on the problem of what am I going to do in my career? What do I, how do I solve these anxiety and panic attacks? And I could not see how to get out of the situation I was in, how to make a change. And you always say the line, which I love, it's like you're inside the box and the instructions are written on the outside. And that really pretty much sums it up.
It does. And, I had watched you, right, for about 2 years. And, we would get together, remember, on vacations and things like that. And you were so stressed, and had to be at the computer so many hours a day. and just really had to. You had no choice, because you had deadlines. And so I watched you and watched you. And as we've told before, I couldn't say anything because you were in your thing and you wouldn't have listened to me anyways. And I think a couple of times we tried to talk about it, but again, you were so fixated and so set on this was the way it was. And so I let it be until I finally saw the opportunity when we did go to that retreat in Costa Rica. And I thought through and I saw I had an opportunity of an amount of time, like 3 or 4 days, to shift and take you into a different experience and have you look at what you really wanted, because from there I knew we could start to see how to unwind this issue that felt like there was just no possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really does feel that way when you're in that
Of
experience. Like
course. Yeah.
whoever is listening right now, like it's not to say that your problems aren't real. Like they were very real, I was having the
Absolutely.
anxiety, I had the deadlines, I had the business model that was set up in a certain way, and it was, I was making great money. There was a lot working, but there was a lot not working for me too. And so whatever you're dealing with, it's not to say that those problems aren't real. It's just that in the way, it's kind of like that line, right? I can't even think of the exact line, but something like what you've done has gotten you to where you are, right? Like you're getting the results you're getting because of like the way you've done things up to this point. Do you remember the line?
Yeah, I know
No.
what you're talking about, but I don't remember the line. Yes, and both of us still go through that. It's not like
Mhm.
not like we've solved that, right? But now we know when we go down that rabbit hole and we know how to approach it differently.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we see this when we coach people a lot. And, really it's like, again, there's this one way of looking at things and this one kind of challenge or maybe multiple challenges that they're dealing with. And so how do you take people outside of that and start to help them see, like, what did you do with me? Or what do you typically do with other clients to help them start to see, like you're saying, a new challenge, a better challenge?
Yeah, you ask questions that have nothing to do with the problem, and usually curious questions. Like I said, like, if you knew you could fail, what would you be doing right now? And if you're sitting there talking to me about, how much work you have and there's no way you can get out of it, then for a moment you go, a lot of times people are like, I never thought about that. I've never thought about that. And so in that, it creates curiosity because people go to something completely different. It takes them, like I said, out of their head and into their curiosity. And so through doing that, and then also continuing to ask questions around different topics that have to do with where do you want to go? What do you want? And even if somebody says to me, I don't know, then I have a simple question. If you did know, what would you do? And usually that takes people out, right? So the
Mm.
questions are very powerful. And that's for us, in the work that we do, that's part of being a coach is learning those questions and the timing to really talk to people in such a way that you do allow them to step into basically a different reality. And like, when we had the experience together in Costa Rica, that's what I did with you. I had a longer time, which was 3 days, which was amazing because then every time you would fall back into that pattern, I would distract you by walking on the beach, going swimming, drinking a margarita, getting a massage. And so I kept shifting you out of that until you weren't stuck in that habitual pattern. Now, not everybody's going to do that, but just the fact of the seeing what is it that you want, what's a bigger new challenge that is more exciting and more engaging than the problem.
Mm.
Now, it didn't
Yeah, and this
solve your problem, but it gave you a different way to look at your problem. And because uh, you hadn't bought into the fact that there's no way it was going to work anymore, because a little bit that's where you were, we were able to take you out and start to say step by step, how do we navigate this and how do we do something different here? And that was the process we went through for several months. But so it doesn't mean your problem's going to solve or you ignore your problem. It just means we're going to take a different approach to it.
So you have coached coaches or trained coaches for
Yeah,
many
we
years
certify
among,
coaches. Yeah.
yeah, among a lot of other kinds of people that we work with. And so this is one of the skills that you would teach, right?
Yeah.
And that we taught in our coaching certifications and everything else. So we do have a free guide that we'll share with you all, which is our top 10 coaching questions. And even if you're not a coach and you're listening to this, there's some really powerful questions in there that can sort of open up a different line of thinking, so to speak. They can start to open up your mind, like Gigi's saying, to not be just in the habitual way of operating or focus more on the problem, but starting to see maybe new possibilities or new things that you want. So we'll put that in the show notes. And also the URL is wayofthemuse.com/questions. So you can go download that as well. So is there anything else, like when you teach a coach how to support someone? Because I think there's a big piece of the, you can do the reflection questions yourself. Let's say someone journals and they do these reflection
Yeah.
questions, maybe from the guide or something like that. But I'll just share, like last night, I had an experience of sitting down with someone and they were so curious. And the way they asked questions and the way they listened, I started to like see things in a different way. And I have that experience with you all the time, right? And people have that experience with us frequently. So I feel like there's something powerful about the space that someone else can hold with the right kind of listening. Would you say that
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely. And that, we teach our coaches as well, is sitting in the seat of the coach, which is in this place of asking questions without ever in a very open way and waiting to see what comes, having no agenda of what the person should say or where they should go or what they should do. So it's really tapping into your curiosity in terms of being deeply interested in people. And that's, some people have that naturally, but from my experience of over 4 decades and teaching it is, curiosity is a skill we had as children because we're naturally born with it. But it's something that kind of goes away after a while because we get a little jaded in life, and so practicing and learning that skill of curiosity and interest, because when you do that, what happens is you allow people, like you said, to really express, and you're deeply interested, and that opens the space for people to really share. Yeah.
Hmm. And I love the idea of bringing curiosity even to yourself. Like
Yeah.
there's that line, familiarity breeds contempt, and we think about that in relationships, but I think it's also kind of true for ourselves that we think we know our lives. We think we know, what we're
Our
capable of or
shortcomings.
what's our
Yeah.
shortcomings, and so we're in this fixed view. And I think what we're talking about here in terms of taking on a new challenge and going for what you want is sort of opening up the view, widening the lens and going, like what else is possible here? But I think there's also something to the element of how to describe this. Sometimes our problems can have, especially if they're interpersonal and have like and other people in the mix, conflict or something like that. There can also be this like addictiveness to it, but like people get a little caught up in that. Do you see that with people? Like,
Well, I think we all have patterns,
yeah.
and when you get off, when you take a left turn for a while, then we resort to the patterns. And
Mm.
it is true that often in a dynamic with another person is there starts to be a pattern. And in that pattern, you get engaged, and you're right, then the being upset or being in the fight or having these issues becomes a distraction just because it's habitual. It's happened for so long. And that's why asking the question and getting something that's outside of that is engaging enough that you'll shift your attention is a way of shifting it. But of course, the habit is to go back to that. So you have to really, really work at it, right? It has to be something, what you want has to be exciting enough that you will stay out of that pattern for a while. You had a guide. I assisted you to do that because there were several times when I think if I wasn't there, you would have fallen back in. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
100%.
yeah. So I
100%.
think often if you have a guide or support or a friend or somebody who's really holding you to the line of no, 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 you said you're going to do this.
Yeah. Well, and I think the friendship piece is interesting because with, let's say, interpersonal conflict or some of the challenges, I think we have this habitual way, like you're saying, this pattern in our culture around people getting together and talking about their problems. Right. So people get together, we get together with our friends. And of course, we need a place to vent sometimes and things like that. But sometimes it's like that's the only kinds of things we talk about. And so it is kind of opening up to, yeah, a different way, which is also starting to talk about what do you really want? I think to give some examples would be helpful. So, like, what's an example of someone you've worked with maybe, and we always change names and
Yeah.
details and everything, but the types of scenarios maybe that come up with people you've worked with when they are maybe a little bit more focused on the challenge or the problems or the things that they're struggling with, and then they shift and they see something different.
Yeah. I mean, there are clients, sometimes you see that again, when they go off, they get distracted and they start creating distractions, 1,000 different distractions, and get into overwhelm and then go down this hole of, completely losing focus. I see this sometimes with women. It happens with men too, but we're right now predominantly working with women in our programs. So in that, seeing them go down this, get so distracted and then engage. And then what happens is they completely forget about their business, or not forget about it, but they're not focusing on the right things. And yeah, I see this happen often, often. So, and then, being
So you,
aware,
Go ahead.
being aware of it, even though, I give them feedback and they become aware, it's learning then how do they catch that themselves? And then what are the tools to get back on track? Yeah.
So I feel like that needs a little more description. So like you're saying building a business, there's like an entrepreneur going for building their business. And then you said they get distracted or they create. So what does that mean? A lot of times it's like personal stuff will come up, and it's not that you can't, of course, address the personal things in your life, but sometimes we see there's a pattern there, right? Of any time someone starts going for what they want in their business, for example, then something comes up with their kids or something comes up over here, which of course, if that happens, you have to address it. But we see them almost completely take their energy and attention off of their business and put it over here and go, well, I can't focus on my business now. And so there is this way of, I think, allowing the things in your life. There's dealing with the things in your life or addressing them if they need to be addressed. And then there's also letting them completely pull you off and distract you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like the difference between those two.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I see also often that people get distracted by their relationships. There's an issue in their relationship, and it's, usually I find in relationship, there's usually maybe two issues, and those issues are over and over, and they look different, but it's the same issue underneath. And people again get engaged in that sometimes, like you said, a little addicted to that, and keep on feeling like they're going to be able to solve it. They're going to be able to solve it. And it's that thing of, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and they just keep on going at it different ways. But the truth is, I've showed women many times, is get your attention off of that, go to what you want, go to building your dreams, go to making your life work. And then all of a sudden that issue, you can see it completely differently and approach it differently. And especially if you're an entrepreneur woman, you're building your business, and you get distracted constantly by your relationship, and it takes you off your game in terms of being in your business and being with your clients, and that affects your income, right? And if the issue is about income, because often, it's money, sex, those kind of things. Um, then if you're over here fighting with your partner, instead of really focusing on how do I grow, how do I sustain, you're going to feel so much more powerful when you do that, even though, yeah, it's tough and challenging, but wherever you put your attention there, it's going to be tough and challenging. If you put it in the relationship or if you put it on growing. So yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
simple
or
to talk about and it's complex to do. Yeah. So
another example could be even something like self-doubt,
yeah.
which people have self-doubt when they're, let's say, growing their businesses or going for their bigger dreams. And, it's great to, of course, address that. And there's different things you can do. And we talk about this a lot, but what we find a lot of the times is that people get a little bit fixated on the self-doubt and they start just kind of cycling through trying to fix the self-doubt and get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it becomes actually a distraction from taking the action to move their business forward. I think an interesting question for people to reflect on as you're listening is like, what are those problems that come up for you or that are currently in your life? And maybe some of them have been going on for a while, whether it's in your relationship or other relationships in your life or self-doubt or whatever it might be. And it's really powerful to think about how much time and energy do you spend focused on this problem or like distracted or caught up in this problem? And what would happen if you freed that time and energy up? Even if you freed it up like 80%, maybe 20% still needs to go there to handle whatever needs to be handled. But what if 80% of that time and energy got freed up and you put that into going for what you want instead?
Yeah,
what would
that's
happen?
incredible. I did that early on in my career, my first business, because I was constantly being distracted, giving my partner a hard time all the time. And then I had this kind of awakening and saw, oh my gosh, the amount of time I spend trying to argue with him. If I shift that to like putting it into my business and putting into things I want to do, what a shift. And I did it, in my life completely changed. Yeah. I made so much more money, I had so much more time, I had so much more fun. And it was a big aha moment, a very big one. Ended up being, kind of the theme for my first book in Germany was, would you rather be right or would you rather be rich? And rich in all areas, richness in your life, because before I was so in just habit, it was just a habit, a way of kind of being in relationship. And when I cleaned that up, it was like a completely different life that I lived. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And it
thinking
wasn't
about,
easy. It wasn't easy. Every time I wanted to engage, I would never forget it. I would just be like, oh, would I rather be right or would I rather be rich? Yeah. What am
and
I
you
going
could
to
say,
choose right here, right now? Yeah.
yeah. And if you're not going for rich in financial sense, it could be, would I rather be right or get what I want, right? Build
Yeah,
this
or get what I
dream or
want,
whatever it
or,
is.
go on that trip or have more time with my children or whatever it is, be happier.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just such a great way to think about it, because I think that's often the aha for people is like, wow, the amount of time and energy and attention I'm putting into this thing. If I free that up, then what becomes possible? Another time, I want to share one other example because it's a little bit of a different way of looking at this is someone that I did a coaching with came in and she was wanting to build her business. And so she came in with her plan of, actually, this happens a lot. I'm thinking one in particular, but now a few others are jumping into my mind. So she had the plan of how she thought she should grow her business. And it was like the logical linear progression of how you might grow your business. So it was a good idea, something that she'd come up with. It was a great idea. Nothing wrong with that. So we kind of mapped it all out and we looked at that. And then I just started asking other questions. And I just said, okay, great. And I kind of took her to the bigger picture and What did she want? What was the end result? How would that, how did she want to feel in her business? How did she want to be interacting with her clients? How did she want this aspect to be? And when we did that, this complete other picture emerged. And it wasn't that she wasn't necessarily, sometimes when this happens with clients, the initial idea turns out not to be it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's still something they want to incorporate, but they go, oh my gosh, I've been so focused on this one little thing. But the truth is there's this much bigger vision that I have, this much bigger game I want to play. And it's like the light bulb goes on. And what's so cool about that, and this comes back to our work around aliveness, is you can see when it like really hits and brings someone alive. It's like the light bulb is literally the lights in their eyes, right? It's like, ding, we got it. We landed on it. And that's how it should be for any of these examples we're giving, is when you're going for what you want, that's in alignment with what you desire, with your aliveness. And so I just love when we do that, because so often I think when people feel a little like stuck or stagnant, or it's like taking a long time to get to where they want to go, or they feel like they're not making as much progress, it's because they're a little bit in the box with their thinking. And when you can expand out and really see, then things start to move faster. I feel like a lot of the times too, like what becomes possible really accelerates somehow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the main distinction for today. It's a more theoretical, feels theoretical. It's not theoretical at all when we work with people and we really get in there. But if it's a new concept for you, something new that you're looking at, then it might stretch your brain a little bit to go, wait a second, how does that work? And where is this showing up for me? But as always, like we say, just be curious and see, is this showing up anywhere? And what do you want there? So to support you with that, again, we do have that top 10 coaching questions PDF. It's a free download, and you can go to wayofthemuse.com/questions and you can download that. It's really, really popular. So I think you'll really enjoy it. And I think that's really it for today. Anything else?
Nothing else. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
If you enjoyed this episode and you're curious about diving deeper, you will love The Collective, our monthly membership program. Think of this as the group of girlfriends you always wish you had, plus the coaching and support to step into the woman you're meant to be and the life and success you've been dreaming of. It includes powerful courses, live connection and coaching calls, and a community of like-minded women around the world, plus lots of other incredible bonuses. Every 8 to 10 weeks, we begin a new season focused on a topic like self-love, stepping into your bigger purpose, breaking through fear and self-doubt, or growing your success with more ease and flow. You can join the monthly membership for just $197 or sign up for the year and get an all-access course pass and enjoy huge savings on your annual membership. Learn more at wayofthemuse.com/collective. That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.